Hi, it's Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast. If you haven't listened to it yet, you should. It's been fabulous. There's at least a year and a half worth of podcasts there for you to listen to. And also this MAAP community where we help each other find a way to plan for the care of our pets if something were to happen to us. And if you've been a longtime listener, you know that I have been in North Carolina without any dogs. One of my dogs is with Sally Anderson Bruce, and the other one of my dogs was out on the road getting his championship. So he did that in quick order, but he couldn't come home because I couldn't take him. So he stayed with the handler for another 2 months. And now he is home and I will let him in soon. He has photobombed every Zoom I've been on today to the point where the kissing of my face was sort of comic relief for everyone. But of course, the MAAP plan stands for Make a Plan, Appoint Caregivers, Address the Needs of Your Pet, and make sure it's published with all those people so they know what they're doing and who their alternate person is. So if something goes wrong, you have a lot of people who know what's going on. Well, now I'm in North Carolina. I do not have a vet. I'm interviewing vets next week. I really have several neighbors who've fallen in love with Junie, so I think in a pinch, they might be able to take Junie, but I'm hoping no pinches happen. And I am in search of, caregivers. I'm in search of people who are going to be able to take care of me at my house when I have surgery in late January. And of course, I have taken him to exercise every day. And it's a delicate balance because he's at the beach. He's never been at the beach before. If you've gone to my Facebook page, you might have seen some of his pictures. He was there yesterday morning. He's trying to open the door, just so you know, and he probably will succeed before we're done. But as I'm there with the view in my mind that I don't have a vet and, I have a first aid kit, but I'm like, oh my God, where would I take him? So these are the kind of questions that we bring up here when we're talking about how to make a plan for your pet. So the first thing you have to do is sit down and make a plan. And I know that Connie has done that. I know Susan's in the process of doing that. I know Sally's done that. And Sharon, I don't know where you are in the plan. We're going to check in with everybody to see why they're here. And when I get to you, just want to give you warning. I'll say, so what can I help you with? So keep that little tidbit in your mind and we'll get to you. So I'm going to start with you, Connie. How is everybody in the Wheaton household?
Everybody is just great, and I am happy to announce that Casey went best of winners this past weekend, and he has 13 points toward his championship. We just need his second major, which hopefully we'll get it at Palm Springs the first full weekend of January, and he will be done with that.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
Then we can go on to special him. But he was he didn't get his act together for 2 days, but on Sunday he did. And so that was, a big relief, and I was very proud of him. However, yesterday, speaking of one of the Ds, I'm sure people have seen on the news that all of California, Northern California Sunday, and us starting Monday night into all of yesterday, got absolutely barraged with an atmospheric river, as we call them here on the West Coast, that come in from the Pacific. And downtown LA alone got over 2 inches of rain. I'm sure we did here by the coast. Orange County got up to 5 inches of rain. And in some of the very expensive canyon areas, including horse property, there were mudslides. There were rivers running down narrow streets.
Mud rivers,
exactly. And the Orange County Fire Department had its hands full.
And if you have a pet during that, you have to make sure that you're out of there because you aren't getting out in a car in a mud river.
No way. You are stuck. And they did have to do some rescues. Yep. And when you've got horses, let alone dogs, you're really stuck, as you know, Deborah, being a horse person. Right. So it was all over the local news last night. And I stayed in with my Wheatons, except when they had to go out, and then they came in and they were absolutely drenched. So we have the Ds, and We're supposed to get more rain tomorrow and 3 days of rain next week. So that could eventuate in more mudslides. And of course,
and that's because of the other disaster, which is the fire. So the fire takes all of the trees that hold them.
That's right.
and then the rain comes to take the mud down the hill. And it really is a frightening thing. And you really have to be aware of what your neighborhood is risked of, or the risks you have within your neighborhood, because that's really key. Like I know here we have hurricanes. We
Right.
haven't had any hurricanes yet. My neighbors keep telling me, well, when Florence came, okay, so we're preparing for Florence again.
So you're exactly right, Deborah. All the burn areas were under evacuation orders. Some of the people heeded them, some of them did not.
Yep.
Even here on the Palos Verdes Peninsula, where thank God we did not have any fires, we still have very steep hillsides, including some of my banks in my yard and down the back of my property to the canyon. So
it's not limited to fire damage. There's sometimes erosion that'll take down a wall that looks pretty good.
Absolutely. And so the city of Rancho Palos Verdes, my municipality, over the weekend let everybody know on email that there were sandbags and piles of sand at City Hall. Bring your shovels, bring your pickup trucks. We've got them. You got to fill your bags, but
they're here for you to fill. Right.
That's right.
Well, I'm glad that you and the kids are safe. So let me check in with Susan. Everything going well with Maggie?
Not too bad. She's looks right at home where she is right now. I think she's taken over the place.
She absolutely has. She absolutely has. And I'm glad we talked a little before everyone came on. And so Susan's working out the next steps with Maggie, learning a lot about different kinds of training and medication. So she's going to fill us in next week.
Yeah, I hope the trazodone's just a short term, not a forever thing with Maggie.
Yeah, it's something that you'll have to work closely with an animal behaviorist. I did send you his information, didn't I? And if I didn't, I'll send it after this call.
Not yet, no. Yeah. So Maggie, I hate to give her meds because she's very high spirited, and that's part of what I love about her. But it's also can be a huge problem, when she's barking and so loud I can't talk to anybody every time the phone rings, or she's wanting to eat our food off our plates, whatever it is.
And she's a little dog. She's a Catan, so she's not a big dog that can get up on the table.
But she can jump, and she's 5 pounds over her 10-pound allowance for Catan.
So she needs to go on a diet, not nosh on new food.
She does. She really does. And I just don't know how. It's a huge challenge.
Like it is for us. It's a challenge for us to lose weight. It's a challenge for us to have our dogs lose weight. I'm much better at having my dogs lose weight than me lose weight, but I digress. Sally, how are the girls?
The girls are fabulous. It's bizarre. I'm in Connecticut. 27 today, 61 degrees tomorrow. So it's just crazy. But talking about the MAAP plan, I was in a photo shoot last week, and I was asking one of the shelter owners about a cat facility we have here that I didn't know a lot about. And I said, you pay a huge sum of money, and when you die, your cat goes into this facility. And a lot of people I know go and play with the cat and visit them. And I asked her about it, and she said, well, she goes, these cats are not accustomed to living in a big open space with a lot of cats. They're accustomed to being in a home. And I thought, that's very interesting, because when you think of your MAAP plan, you have to think of your pet, how your pet lives, what is their environment. And if you put it, like the 2 dogs that are living with us, they live in a home. They live in the bedroom, the living room. They have their rule of the home. They have their own beds. But if I were to take them and put them in a huge open space with 100 other dogs, pay a large fee, and I know they're cared for the rest of their lives, I'm not so sure they'd be content and happy in that environment. So I think you really have to think through the MAAP plan and who you're putting in the plan and where your pet is going to go.
Absolutely. There are some sanctuaries that definitely have you. I know that the North Shore Animal League will keep a dog for you if you need help. And if they can find it a home, they give the home, they give it to the home, but the money you have left to care for them stays with the North Shore Animal League. It doesn't go with the person who's taking the dog. So it's always best to try to make sure you find the people who know your pet, who know how to care for your pet, who will keep it in a similar environment. We just had another Irish setter person pass away and left two elderly girls who didn't get along, so they couldn't go together, unlike Roxy and Athena. And so they had to find separate homes, and it's hard enough to find an 11-year-old a home to begin with, but to find two 11-year-olds who don't get along with other dogs a home, that's definitely difficult. That's why when you say the MAAP plan address the needs of your pet, you really need to let people know how that pet has lived. If it's lived in a kennel, which these girls probably would do pretty well in a kennel environment with 100 other dogs barking because they grew up in a kennel environment, so they might do well. Roxy and Athena have been on and off because, of course, I had the kennel because I was always afraid of fire and I wanted them to be able to get out, but then they lived upstairs, so they had the best of both worlds. So you really have to, when you make your plan, decide what's the most important pieces. I always tell people who work with me, pick the most important pieces. Don't be uber micromanaging who's ever taking your pet. But if your pet really doesn't like cats, tell them really doesn't like cats. Likely it would be difficult for you to desensitize them to cats. So maybe that wouldn't be a good home, even though the person with the cats probably might be the best home, but not always that way. So Sharon, tell us a little bit about you and what your dogs' names are and what kind of, or cats, and where you're from.
I'm currently in Portland, Oregon. I have a little guy who's part Corgi Beagle Chihuahua, so he's quite a unique looking. I know, quite a unique.
He is really unique looking. I can't even begin to think what that looks like.
He's really something. I rescued him when he was 5, and he's always had severe separation anxiety from me. He's about 12, 13 years old. So yeah, and then, you know, with me getting older and him getting older, I worry about, well, what am I going to do, or what should I do? What should I plan? So,
right.
You know,
and that's why you're here. Well, Oregon's pretty nice this time of the year. I think you guys have better weather than, it's not as cold, right? Or it's disgusting.
It's raining all the time.
Oh, it rains all the time. Well, I was trying to be positive. I know it rains in Oregon, but I was hoping to be positive. There might be a sunny week in there. So Oregon is one of those places that has a lot of really dog friendly environments. So you might be able to play on that. I know during COVID, we talked a lot about finding people in your neck of the woods who have pets and offering to watch their pets. During COVID, it was easier to do because people recognized they needed help if something happened to them. Now it's just sort of a nice thing to do. We would go around to the people who, if you walk your dog or you go to a dog park, say, listen, if something happens to you, I'm happy to watch your pet either in your house or, you know, have it. It's always better to leave them in their house because A, they know where they are, and B, they can't get out and run away, which is always the downfall of taking a dog out of its place. So if the person is there, it's always good to keep if the person isn't there but has the house, it's always good to keep the dog in its place. Always. I know Sally just traveled and the girls stayed in their place and somebody came in. And you always have to have an heir and a spare, so to speak. I always say you have to have at least 3, which is why I often say try to find the neighbors with pets who are going to need the same thing you need. So if they get sick or if they're stuck with an airplane, I don't know if you've listened to any of these before, Sharon. If you have, you might have heard us talk about the D's that Connie brought up. So there's death, which we always have to prepare for, but that's sort of the least important one because you're not here to worry about your pet because you're gone. The ones that are really important are, okay, you have a dog, you're sick, you're in the hospital, disease, disability, 2 of the most emotionally draining things that can happen to you when you don't have a pet plan in place, because you're not dead yet. You might have your plan in your will, but you're not dead yet. So it doesn't come to fruition. So you always have to make a plan that's going to come to fruition regardless of what happens. There's divorce. So if you're married or if you're in a relationship, make sure you have a plan for what happens to the pets. If you break up, because that's one of the staples of my office in conflict resolution, is how to help people resolve conflicts over animals when it comes to breaking up, because I bought it. So my name's on the sales slip. I paid for it. I paid for all its medical bills, but yes, it was a gift for my husband. However, he doesn't work and, he just enjoyed the dog, but I own the dog because it's property under the law. So in some states, it's strict property. And even though they can sometimes say, well, it should go to your husband because it was a gift to your husband, if they make that argument, then you've taken the moneyed spouse away from caring for the pet. So that's a problem. So there's always, having that discussion before. There's delays. If you've flown recently, there are terrible delays. They either cancel your plane. My son, Drew, flew home for Thanksgiving on American and flew back on JetBlue. He said, oh my God, I'm leaving from JetBlue. And he only knew 2 days before that he wasn't going back on American. God only knows what happened, but that's what happened. So you can have a delay at the airport. You can, I'm sure you've known friends of yours who might have dementia. So dementia is slow onset sometimes, and it's hard for people to make these plans for their pets. When I speak about disease, I often speak about cancer because most of the cancer commercials have the pets home with the person going through chemotherapy. Well, that's only going to happen if you have someone who is going to take care of the pets while you're there, and while you're home and while you're sick. My mom had cancer. The medication she took made her very sick, but she loved having my dogs there. Well, that's because I took care of my dogs. She didn't take care of my dogs. But I found when my husband broke his shoulder that it was really great that I had my MAAP plan in place, because I was able to ask my MAAP people, my appointed caregivers, to come over at least once a day to give the dogs extra exercise, extra love and affection while I was taking care of my husband. And I know, Connie, you've used that as well. And Sally, you've used that, because it gives you that peace of mind that when someone is ill, I mean, Sally's husband was ill and she was taking care of him. And, if she knew who she could call if she needed help with the girls, which I think is peace of mind that we all have to have. So I'm so glad you're here, Sharon. So you only have the one dog. Have you pulled together any information on what you want to do as far as a plan is concerned?
No, I'm just starting to get my feet
Well, that's
wet.
great.
Thinking
That's
about
the
it.
best way to come. So what you should do, we're here every Wednesday night, except that I think this is the last Wednesday till after the new year. So you have a lot of time. I hope you join us after the new year. We're here on Wednesdays at 6:30. We sit there and we help people draft it. So what you can do from now until the beginning of January is decide what kind of care you would want. What's your Chihuahua, Corgi? I forgot the third one. Beagle. What's his name?
Brody.
Oh, I love that name. I have a nephew named Brody who I like very much. Oh, Brody's a great name. So what would you like Brody to have happen to him if something happened to you? Well, I'd like him to go to so-and-so who knows him, who he knows, because then he'd sort of at least go with someone he knows. If you have a dog walker, if you have a caregiver, you can check with Chihuahua, Beagle, and Corgi Rescue and say, listen, he's part this. If you got him from a shelter, now you have to do this before you come back. If you got him from a shelter or a rescue, read the contract they might have made you sign, because you may have to return him to them even if something happens to you. So you might have to return him to them. And if that's the case, I always say, just be incredibly transparent and say, listen, I know I signed this contract for you. It was 6 years ago, because he's 11, you said, right?
Right.
So you signed it 6 years ago. And in the doggy park where I walk Brody, he has a best friend, and his best friend and I, the owner of his best friend and I, are good friends. And we both have said if something happened to us, we would take the other one's dog. So I'd like to introduce you to Mary Smith, who is Brody's best friend's owner, so that if something happens, you can meet her and she can take Brody instead of having Brody go back to the shelter. So if you take the time during the holidays just to read if you can find it. If you can't find it, the contract's probably the same on the website, so you can read it on the website. But often rescues and shelters want you to return the dog to them. And if
Well,
it
I got
doesn't,
them in Wisconsin, so it would be pretty
Yeah.
tough to drive 2,000 miles to give them back to the shelter there.
absolutely. Well, as an attorney, I have to always say you have to abide by the contract. However, you always have to abide by the contract. However, if you find someone who's really if they haven't kept in touch with you in the last 6 years, if they've made no effort to keep in touch with you, then they probably would lose any sort of contract issue that they might bring up if you place him in Oregon. So you probably could just go to Mary Smith, the dog park friend, and say, you want to promise each other that we'll do this. And you want to do it with 2 or 3 Mary Smiths, not just with one, because I can tell you, and I think Connie and Sally have stories as well. Mary Smith, Jenny Jones, and Susie McGillicuddy all can be busy on a day, and thank God they know about each other, because they can then have the other person step in. Having one caregiver, never enough. That's why I'm sort of crazy with Junie here, because I have myself and my husband, and now I'm in search of caregivers. Now I have caregivers in Raleigh. However, that's 3 hours from me. So that's not close by. You really want to, especially with COVID now, I used to say, oh, that's okay. I have a caregiver in Connecticut and I have a caregiver in Maryland. That's great when we could move everywhere. But now if we ever go back into a pandemic, we really have to have someone close by who can take the dogs upon something happening to us, upon us being brought out on a stretcher into an ambulance, because you don't want Brody to go to animal care and control if you can help it.
Yeah.
So the second thing you have to do before you come back, hopefully, at the beginning of the year, is on your refrigerator, on your back door, something very bright and cheery. I use Post-it notes, the big square, the big squares like this big, in orange or in pink, in case of emergency. Do not take Brody to the shelter. Please call this number. This will be the person who will come and take Brody from the house, leave him here. And then I always say you want the nosy neighbor who also has that information, who will tell Animal Care and Control and EMS. I know what Sharon wants to do with Brody. Leave him in the house. I'm calling the person who is supposed to take Brody, and just leave him there. Because once he gets in the system, if God forbid you aren't able to answer your phone when they call you and say, do you want Brody back? They will give Brody away. Somebody might adopt him. And you can't get him back, because once a dog is released to a rescue or a shelter from Animal Care and Control, if they find a suitable home for him and he's adopted, he's gone, which is why you really want to be able to keep him in your home if you have someone who is able to respond right away, and a neighbor who can, advise them, because the sign should be enough. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But having a neighbor that said, and she or he don't have to take Brody. They simply have to tell them they know who's going to take Brody, and have that information to make sure that Brody is cared for. I know these things are half an hour and I always run over, and I'm sorry. I want to check in. Is there anything? I've given you a fire hose worth of information.
This is great.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, we hope you join us in the coming new year, because it is really important to make this plan. Any closing remarks, Sally, about the holidays and the girls?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, and
Merry
happy healthy New
Christmas.
Year.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And Connie, anything from the Wheatons for Christmas?
Nothing really. We've got a couple of dog club holiday parties to go to this weekend
With masks?
Pardon me, absolutely. And of course we have reinstated statewide, not just Los Angeles County, our mask mandate in California. But the next big event is the Palm Springs Dog Show weekend. And we're looking forward to that. Fingers crossed that Mr. Casey finishes.
Oh.
And I wish
This is what he did all day.
I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and please stay safe and well.
Absolutely. Everyone, I am so grateful that we meet at 6:30 every single Wednesday night, except for the next two for the holidays. We'll start up again. What day are we starting, Rose? I'll look on my calendar. I'm not being good. I am recording. Thank you. You just scared me to death.
The 5th?
Yeah, I did hit record. Yes, I did. I was good. So the next one will be January 5th. So mark your calendars. That's when we're going to start again. It's going to be a little bit different format, maybe. I'm not sure. Rose and I are working on it. But remember, this is something that your pet counts on you to do. And most people say, oh, I'm going to go talk to my trust and estate attorney. And usually the trust and estate attorney puts it in your will. They don't necessarily help you find the people.
Oh, no.
That was Junie. Yeah, you're back. You're back in spades. Yes, you are. You're back in spades. So, see, Susan, you're not the only one with a troublemaker. Oh, I can't even get him. There he is. I can't even get him in the picture. But anyway, it's
He's so happy to see you.
Oh my God, he's been out of his skin. In fact, Jim put him in the car. We went to the eye doctor, so I can hardly see any of you, but that's okay. And he thought Jim was taking him away from me. And Jim goes, he's been crying in the car just because you were late into the car. I said, well, he was afraid you were stealing him from me. So he's a boy. But they really do count on you. And so as a Christmas present to yourself, sit down and just do the M, which is make a plan. What would you want for your dog? If something were to happen to you, what would you want for them to have happen to them? Would you like them to go into a home? Would you like them to be an only dog or cat or bird or horse? These are things you need to think about. If they're an indoor horse that's always been stabled, will they be okay being an outdoor horse with a run-in? I mean, they might be. Horses are pretty resilient. It's all about the person who you find who's going to care for your pet. That is key. I know that, Connie, you have people up and down the neighborhood who thankfully have Wheatons and are part of your club. So that's key. And I know that, Sally, you've been doing a yeoman's job trying to replace someone who moved to North Carolina, me, trying to find people, but you found someone who was phenomenal for your last trip. So that should give you a little bit of peace of mind. Susan, you're still looking, and you've really got to do that, especially with Maggie's idiosyncrasies.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to get those under control. So
right,
that'll
absolutely
make the job easier.
It will. And Sharon, we look forward to having you join us. We meet here for half an hour every Wednesday night just to talk about the new things that are coming up. I mean, during COVID, it changed every week because things were happening.
Right.
And so the Ds are important, the disasters, the disability, the dementia, the delays, the deployments, the divorces, the deaths. It's impossible to think about all these things and not know that your dog is counting on you or your cat or your bird or your horse to make their next journey where they're going to go pretty flawless, pretty event-free. It'll always be eventful because, like Junie, when I put him with a handler to be finished, he was happy, but not as happy as he was when he came home. And he was safe, but not as safe as I'm sure I keep him. But we all, have the ability to know where they can go. So remember to look around, people you have in the dog park, vet caregivers. Vets always know people in the neighborhood. If you have a vet staff member who takes care of pets, as I said, I always like pets taken care of in their own home if you're ill, if you can do that, because that way there's less chance of them finding a way out to get home because they are home. So until next year, I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. Kiss your babies for me. So that's Maggie, and that's Roxy and Athena, and that's Brody. And of course, our Mr. Casey
And
our
Miss
Miss
Mommy Patsy.
and Miss Patsy. And of course, we know Grandma Bam is looking down saying, oh my God, I'm glad she made that plan, but she could get rid of them too. But I love you all. Thank you so much for coming. I will let Kieran know, and hopefully we'll see you next year, Sharon. We're here to help.
Look forward
That's
to
what
it.
we do, because we're problem solvers. When people come and say, I can't find anybody, we're problem solvers. We don't make anybody feel bad, and we make sure everybody is made a plan for their pet. So until next time, this is Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, and of course, this wonderful MAAP community. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, and
Deborah.
make this your New Year's resolution, everyone. See you on January 5th.
Merry Christmas.